Welcome, North Carolina educators and leaders, to another academic policy webinar during our COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Sneha Shah Coltrane, and I am the chair of the NCDPI work group for grading during COVID-19. We also have with us Dr. Jeremy Gibbs from District and Regional Support, Dr. Rachel McGroom from North Carolina Virtual, their Chief Learning Officer, and Dr. Chris Triola from the District and Regional Support team. We also want to give a special thanks to the entire NCDPI grading work group, which spans across the entire agency, as well as has student representatives and superintendent representatives. Today's topics, we will be covering the foundation and setting the stage for you regarding our grading policy. We will also review the State Board of Education approved policy from last week on April 23rd that reviewed the K-5 grading, the 6-8 grading, and the 9-11 grading. We will also be revisiting our graduating seniors grading policy from the end of March, as well as talking with you about promotion and retention during the age of COVID-19. We will review with you the top 6 questions that we've already received from the field, and we believe will clarify a lot of your questions, as well as look at next steps and the implementation toolkit that will be coming to your inboxes over the next week. So let's set the stage. We know school buildings are closed, but school is still on. School districts and charters across our great state have continued to provide a variety of remote learning opportunities to engage our students, and will be continuing to do so until the end of the academic year. While we know that you are differentiating your remote learning opportunities based on the child's home environment as well as access issues, it is also paramount to remember the unprecedented conditions our students are learning in, and to focus more than ever on engagement and feedback, and not just evaluation. When we were assigned this task of thinking about statewide grading if we remained out of school, it was a very difficult task because we've never really thought about a statewide grading policy outside of some general parameters. Yes, we have a grading scale everybody should be using at the high school level, etc., but the state has never embarked with such a response. But we're also in a unique situation, the situation of the COVID-19 pandemic. And what we've heard from across the state, including our post-secondary partners, as well as our academic leaders and LEAs and charters, is for our state to continue to lead the country and to really think about a statewide policy that ensures we are doing all that we can across the state in the best interest of our students when it comes to grading. As our first step, we really discussed and deeply thought about what were our guiding principles. Our guiding principles were to develop a statewide grading policy that positively impacts as many students as possible with grace and generosity. To understand that no grading policy will solve the issues of inequities that already exist in our communities and schools, especially when now, during COVID-19, we do not have the school building environment or the teacher access as equalizing and supportive factors. To validate the efforts of students, families, teachers, and staff during remote learning. To mitigate potential negative impact and harm of COVID-19 remote learning as much as possible on student grading. To address stakeholder concerns, including those from students and parents, and to remember that all voices may not be at the table, and thus to think deeply about all of our students during this process. As a result, our statewide grading policy is responsive to providing feedback and engagement to support growth and the well-being of students, not just evaluation. Our policy is responsive to issues of equity and excellence regarding access to learning environment, as well as student growth and achievement. Equity does not mean the same for every student. Equity and excellence means that we are looking at it with flexibility and varied learning opportunities, and by extending grace and generosity through our policy. We did receive input from many external stakeholders, ranging from our student advisors to our teacher advisors, our principal advisors. We checked with the UNC system and North Carolina independent colleges and universities, their admission and enrollment leaders. We checked with academic leaders as well as administrators across the state to ensure that we have developed the most effective policy possible. Our work group last week asked the state board to approve the following policies that provide a consistent statewide policy for grading for all of North Carolina public school students in grades K through 11. That combined with the policy that the state board passed at the end of March for graduating seniors, now we can say across North Carolina, we have a K-12 statewide grading policy during the time of COVID-19. I'm going to pause here as we move the presentation to Chris, who will be looking at the grading policy for grades K through 5.
Thank you, Sneha. For our students in grades kindergarten through 5th grade, our focus is on feedback and not formal grades. So students this year will not receive a final grade. Instead, we're going to focus on feedback. Teachers will provide feedback on individual student progress to parents and students at the end of this year. Also, teachers will document strengths and opportunities in both academic and social emotional perspectives so that students can have a smooth transition into the 2020-2021 school year. For students in grades 6 through 8, students will receive a PASS, PC-19, or a WC-19 for the final course grade in all middle school courses. PC-19 will be assigned to any student who is meeting expectations through the year. WC-19 will be assigned to any student who is not meeting expectations. The student's grade will be held harmless for learning after March 13th. It's important to note that WC-19 does not equate to failing the course or a need for retention. And similar to our process for feedback in elementary, teachers will also document individual student strengths, again, academic and social emotional, to ensure an effective transition. For our students in middle school that are taking high school courses, we're going to follow the grading options that will be presented in a moment for high school students. In summary, though, students will have a choice for PC-19, WC-19, or a numeric grade for the spring semester grade. And per state board policy, existing state board policy, numeric grades for high school courses taken in the middle school will not be calculated into the high school GPA. And now I'd like to turn it over to Jeremy who will discuss grades 9 through 11.
So thank you, Chris. So I'll take a few minutes to talk with everyone about our grading policies in place now for grades 9 through 11, and that would include seniors that are not graduating in this cohort this year. So at the conclusion of the school year, students are going to be given a choice for how each of their final course grades will appear on the transcript for any currently in progress course, that is for year-long courses or their semester course they're in now. And essentially, students in grades 9 through 11 are going to have two options for the final course grade. The first option is they can choose to report their, numeric grade, the traditional grade that we typically would report at the end of the term. But in this case, it would be either their highest grade, representing learning that they had at March 13th when the extended school closure began, or if they were actually able to work on improving that grade as the semester continued through their remote learning opportunities. So that they would be able to report their numeric grade that would count into GPA calculations, and certainly would be that taking either that highest grade that it might have been that last day they walked out the door, or if they took advantage of opportunities to be able to improve that. If they do not select to report that traditional typical numeric grade, then their other option would be go the route of the PC19 or WC19 for passing the course for PC19. So students are going to determine how each final course grade will appear on the transcript, and they'll do that at the end of the semester after some advising with the teacher in school or counselors or whomever at the school level and in consultation with family members. So again, this is done at the end of term. They don't have to decide now. They can continue remote learning opportunities through to the end to see if there's opportunities for improvement. They can choose those options differently by course. So if a student's in 4 or 7 or 8 courses at present, they may choose different treatments to be applied to different courses based on their own unique circumstances, trying to afford the maximum flexibility. And we know that there are certainly going to be cases where students are just simply unreachable. And our recommendation is to assign a default of PC19 in those cases. And then there'll be that 45-day grace period at the beginning of school next year. School buildings reopen, and hopefully we return to school as we hope to do, and an opportunity to reconnect with those students and provide them that option to clean up anything that's outstanding, but certainly wanting to resolve all those decisions as school is completed in late May or June this year that we can. So when a student chooses to report that numeric grade, as mentioned before, it will go on final transcript, and that numeric grade will be calculated into the cumulative GPA per existing policy, like it would under typical or so-called normal circumstances. If they go the route of the PC19 or WC19, it's important that there is to note that there is no impact on the GPA using either of those marks. If the student chooses PC19 or WC19 for the spring semester of a year-long course, the fall term is going to be stored as a numeric grade and will be counted into the GPA. So for many of our high schools that are operating either completely or partially with year-long courses, those courses will be divided, and similar to how was discussed in the guidance for seniors that was issued about a month ago at this point. Couple of more notes though, that PC19 certainly does award a full unit of credit. As we mentioned, it doesn't count towards quality points or GPA, but it does award that unit of credit, and the student's able to move on to other courses in the sequence or other graduation requirements in the subsequent year. But WC19 does not. And just like Chris mentioned for middle school students, WC19 does not necessarily indicate it's a failing grade, but it just simply indicates there was a lack of evidence that the students had mastered the standards even as of March 13th. And again, somewhat differently than the middle school courses, the WC19 would not receive a unit of credit. So there would have to be some sort of, we'll talk through some of the options about that. But the state board was very clear that they did not want students to receive a failing grade, a grade of an F. That they were, if they were failing as of March 13th and were simply unable to improve during the period of remote learning, the school is advised to use the code of WC19. However, all options are still on the table to use in the future. That could be the summer, that could be next fall, for credit recovery. Using credit recovery to replace any of those WC19 where a student was not able to obtain course credit. Absolutely encourage any credit recovery options and other creative solutions to help those students go back and receive those missed credits. And of course, an already existing opportunity is the repeating a course for credit. So if a student, if it was better for them to retake an entire course in the subsequent school year, that improved higher grade would replace that WC19 in the end. And there may be some limited instances where issuing a temporary grade of incomplete might be a good solution in an individual student's case, and you all can decide that locally when you think it's appropriate. But we always encourage that you have some clear, very time-bound plan to wrap up any of those lingering course requirements so that that incomplete can be cleared.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. We're now going to review the top 6 questions that we have been receiving from the field. We do want to encourage you to remember that school is still on for learning. And while it's important to plan for grading, we need to make sure that we're not assigning final grades just yet. We are still in the process of the semester. The first question that we've been receiving quite a few comments about from the field is, can the required K-8 transition document be the same as the parent feedback form? What we'd say to that is that possibly this is a local decision, but we do want to encourage you to think very deeply about the different audiences. One is to give feedback to a parent, just like a report card would. The other is to really document the transition plan and the specific need that a student may have when they enter the school year in the fall, especially about how they have been progressing during this time, and if there are any issues that the teacher needs to be particularly aware of. So we think it's important that you think about the audiences when it comes to these 2 documents. What about year-long high school courses? Well, fall grades will be counted and stored in the GPA, just like about the seniors. And the spring grades will be counted separately. It'll be 2 half credits essentially in Power School. We will have significant Power School directions, but it will be very similar to how we did it with the seniors. And this will ensure parity among all of the different school schedules that we have across our state. Another question that we've gotten was what do we do about quarter 3 or quarter 4 and the grades entered into Power School? Does this policy impact that? This guidance is specific for the final grades. You continue to have the flexibility around what's in the teacher grade book, how you've done it. I know some districts are giving hundreds for people participating alongside of other academic grades. You have other districts who've said quarter 3, we weren't going to do any grades. However you have done it is a local decision. The key is the final grades must be aligned to State Board of Education policy. Can we just wait to put in a grade until fall 2020 since we can't reach all students? No. Please have your students complete choices at the end of the year and default to PC-19 if needed. However, as Jeremy mentioned earlier, there will be a grace period of 45 days when buildings reopen in case a change needs to be made. But the intent is to go ahead at the end of the school year to focus on providing that choice to students. How you can think about it is if classes were going to have stopped January 1 for final exams, you could be using that time to help students figure out their grading. Another question we've gotten is, what about dual enrollment courses? Well, the same guidance applies here. The college transcript will follow the college guidelines. I know that they have issued a memo regarding the college transcript. The high school transcript will follow the high school guidance. We have heard that some college instructors are finding it challenging to work with each individual student. So what I urge you to do is for the school district and charter leadership to work with the college leadership and develop a strategic plan or a strategy rather, not a whole plan, but a strategy, a process, so that students can have this choice for the high school transcript and that instructors can provide input, but that it doesn't cause undue burden on any party, but that we are doing what is in the best interest of students. Are the post-secondary institutions okay with this idea of a student choice? Well, no one is exactly certain what's going to happen in the future, but we have been assured by the UNC system, as well as our North Carolina Independent College and Universities, that they're going to work with our North Carolina students to mitigate any negative implications. The UNC system in particular has said what this plan is very reasonable. Actually, many of their colleges are doing something very similar on the college level. We all are going to continue working together to ensure our North Carolina students' futures remain bright and full of options and potential as we move through this COVID-19 pandemic. We're now going to be transitioning to Rachel, who will be going over the senior policy that was passed at the end of March.
Thanks, Sneha. As she mentioned, we'll now review what was adopted in late March by the State Board of Education for our graduating seniors. Remember that our focus for this group of students was to graduate our seniors by focusing and ensuring that they can meet the State Board graduation requirements for 22 credits by their originally scheduled graduation date. For our seniors who are in fall courses, their grades will be stored. They were previously stored in PowerSchool. And both year-long and semester courses, those fall grades will be used to calculate in a senior's GPA. For our year-long courses, the fall term grade is what will be calculated in GPA. For our semester-long courses, it will be the final course grade. Please refer to the directions provided by the DPI PowerSchool team for implementation. For the current courses in the spring that our seniors are enrolled in, all seniors will receive a pass PC-19 or a withdrawal WC-19 based on their learning as of March 13th. Should you have a senior who had an F as of March 13th for a required course for graduation, many of you are already doing so, but you will continue to provide remote learning opportunities for these seniors to allow them the opportunity to improve to a passing grade and graduate on time. As we mentioned previously before about year-long courses, the year-long courses will be divided into essentially 2 half credits, where the fall half credit The fall term grade will be included in GPA for seniors. The spring half credit will be a pass or a withdrawal. Again, refer to the Power School directions. The CPR requirement for our seniors has been waived by the State Board of Education. The department and the state board are seeking a legislative waiver with the North Carolina General Assembly as well. And once that occurs, Power School will be updated to reflect that change. For our seniors in the Occupational Course of Study program, our OCS seniors will be allowed to complete 157 hours of the 225 hours required of their paid work hours. Should you have questions and need support about how these students may meet those remaining 157 hours, please refer to our EC Live binder. For promotion and retention, the decision for individual students around promotion and retention remain the decision of the school principal and staff. The department recommends that you only proceed and consider retention of students if that retention consideration process was previously well underway prior to schools closing on March 13th. That should include well-documented communication with the student's family discussing the possibility of retention. If you continue to consider retention for students, please ensure that best practices are being used, including the development of an action plan to support that student and including parent and guardians. I'll now turn this over to Chris to talk about our next steps.
Thank you, Rachel. And so we have some more work to do in service of our districts and charters regarding these changes. I'd like to go over our next steps. Along with the distribution of this recorded webinar, at the end, you're going to see a survey that we're going to ask if you have any questions that are still lingering. So we'll capture those questions that you have. And then we're going to connect with the Chief Academic Officer Advisory Group with the grading work group later this week to respond to some of those questions that you might have. And then the biggest thing is to provide each of you the implementation toolkit. So what will be in this toolkit? Along with a framing video that you can use as an outward-facing resource from Dr. Stegall, we're also going to consolidate all of our frequently asked questions. We're going to consolidate all of our academic guidance. We're going to provide home-based guidance with recorded directions for Power School. There will be a presentation for district and principal use in sharing the policy. We're also going to create a Google folder for use to curate all of the different examples of transition documents for the K-8 transition feedback process. And then to wrap it all up, we're going to put a link that will capture all of these resources in one place so that you can easily access everything. So now I'm going to turn it back to Sneha to wrap us up.
Thanks so much, Chris, Jeremy, and Rachel. So we hope today you've been able to get your initial questions answered, as well as to process the policy in a different way with our voices. If you do have remaining questions, we recommend you go back to the guidance document after reading, to read that document with a new lens after hearing this webinar. Then ask a friend or colleague. You all have incredible colleagues in your community. They may know an answer or can help you figure something out before coming to us, because you know it's taking us a little bit of time to get back to you. But if you still have questions, please submit them to this URL. We will then use those to inform our FAQ, but also we'll be providing an open link later to the responses, so that way you're able to see those questions as they come in and those responses. Our goal, though, is to have a consolidated FAQ and the toolkit all completed by next Tuesday. We do believe we'll have different pieces that come out to you before next Tuesday, and then by next Tuesday, we'll have everything consolidated for you. As always, we cannot thank you enough for all that you're doing, being on the front line of educating our students across North Carolina. We ask that you continue to lead with grace and generosity for your students, your community, and yourselves. We are in unprecedented and uncharted territories for our generation. But please know that we remain grateful for your continued efforts and dedication to our North Carolina public school students. We wish you and your family the absolute best. If we can do anything to serve you better, please do not hesitate to contact us, and know that we are here cheering you on, but also trying to remove barriers and to support your innovative practices that we've all been thrusted into, but are taking with incredible stride. And we're so grateful for your continued work with our students. Wishing you all the best. We're signing off now. Thank you, everyone.